Going to church together is just one of the things that we do. We have an opportunity to be together, to show our love for each other, experience life together, because the world is really just a classroom for everybody, children and adults alike. It's where God uses situations in our lives to kind of show us who He is and how He is, but opportunities for us to get to know Him better, see the world, and see His love for us.
Would not say that I ever planned in my life to homeschool my children. After a lot of praying, we decided that that was going to be the best route for our family. We are in our 4th year now of doing that, and I would definitely say that that is, it was a tough decision, and it's not easy every day. But even in the tough times, those are times that I get to spend with them, and we get to work through those things together. But really, every day, everything we do, we're teaching and showing the kids how to live.
It's definitely shown me a lot about how these guys like to have a family. They like to take care of us, make sure they know where we are, make sure we're doing well, which is kind of their job, but they do it well.
Towards the end of high school, I was just like, little kids, used to it, doesn't really matter. But after going away for a semester and not seeing them every day, you learn a lot from them, you don't realize it. And I think the biggest thing I learned with them was patience. People are different. You have to kind of gauge how their temperaments are and how to act and react to them. I think that's definitely a big thing, and I learn a lot from them on a weekly, if not daily basis.
It's very important as a father to be that role model for our children. I've heard things, read things that talk about the impact that a father can have, and what a father does can make a big impact on their children's life for the good or for the worse. So I know that in every way and everything I do, there's always little eyes watching me.
And thank you to the Sankeys for letting us in their house. That's one of the points of those videos is so that you can see inside somebody else's house and see that it's real. One of the things we were worried about or concerned about as a teaching team as we start talking about families is we come up here every Sunday and someone who is dressed in their Sundays tells you about how great families are, and you sit out there and think, yeah, maybe yours is, but mine's not, right? So one of the things we want to help you with is to tell you, look, our families are like your families. My family doesn't always dress in a coat, right? I mean, we are real people. Trying to a little bit break the myth that Facebook is what reality is, right? Facebook and reality have nothing to do with each other at all, other than a lens captured something, and maybe. So we want to start with these 5 things every week, every teacher. One is, we are all inadequate, right? Just let's get it out in the open right now. None of us have the family that we want to have. We are all inadequate. There's a book by John Ortberg that I didn't read, but the title was great enough that I didn't have to, and it was, Everyone's Normal Till You Get to Know Them. Everyone's normal till you get to know them. I have no idea what he said after that, but that's enough that, yes, indeed. And that's the same with families. They're all normal unless you went home with them and actually watched them work, right? Number 2, it all counts. This is a very inside joke with my wife and I. This comes up all the time. We're doing something, we're giving some money, or we're doing something, and it's like, does this count? Does this count? Yeah. That's my reaction every time. Yeah. And that's what we want to tell you too. It all counts. Do something. Try something. Don't worry about if it's big enough or meaningful enough. Just do something. It all counts. Number 3, it starts with me. A lot of times in a family situation and in other situations, you think, if only that person would change everything about themselves, this family would be great. Well, that may be true, but what you have control over is you. And so one of the things we're trying to say is it starts with you. You need to do some things also. Number 5 is laugh and it's okay to cry. And in my mind, this goes back to the it all counts and do something. I mean, just try something, and sometimes it's going to be an utter failure, and you guys are going to be able to laugh at it and then go by yourself and cry about it. And I didn't mean you have to only cry by yourself and like be a good man and all that. You can cry with other people too. laugh and it's okay to cry. Just don't take it all quite so seriously. Just do something and try something, all right? So we're trying to say, we're all in this together. We are not trying to get up here and tell you our families are perfect and you need to be like that. That would be a really funny message. So I've been at Orchard Hill for a lot of years. I don't even want to count it. I know it's at least around 25-ish. And I've sat where you sit and listened to a lot of family series, a lot of times where teachers came up and we spent several weeks talking about the family. And one thing that you guys have never heard, if you've been around here for a long time, is me, Kurt Vander Wiel, talking about family. It's never happened. I've never taught in the family series. And here's why. Every time, I've told you before, the teaching team is in a room together, and we do all this work figuring out what we're going to talk about, and then we start assigning the topics. And I become like the kid in the math class who doesn't know the answer. Like, and then when it's all done, when they all are assigned, I'm like, good. This is going to be a good series. Good luck with that, right? That's how it's always worked. Well, this time it worked very similar. I ducked and hid and didn't sign up for any family teaching. And then Dave Bartlett calls me a little later and says, Kurt, something, I don't even know what it was. He might have been making this up. Now that I think about it. Something's gone wrong, and we really would like you to be in the family series. That's a great sentence. I don't think that's how he said it, but I wish it was. Something's gone horribly wrong, and we need you. We're desperate. And so I said, Dave, no, I've never taught in the family series, and it's because of a reason. And he said, really? Let's go to breakfast and talk about this. I don't know if you know Dave very well, but every problem is solved over breakfast. At least it is with me, which is why him and I are in Panera all the time. I guess I have a lot of problems that need solving over breakfast. So we go to breakfast, and he says, Kurt, what are you talking about? Why have you never talked in the family series? And I said, here's why. It's because, in a way, I kind of don't understand family series, because I really believe that we should just be the same people in our families as we are not in our families. Like what I am in my business, and what I am when I'm playing around doing the recreational things that I do, and what I am in my family, I don't see a difference. I think it should just be exactly the same. I really believe that I should be a humble person, that I should submit myself to other people who are around me, that I should try to be putting other people first, that I should be doing that wherever I am. And he said, teach that. So I'm done. Thank you very much. Family series by Kurt. All right. So that's what I'm going to teach. That I think the way that we be in families right is to be right. And that's why my title is something about family. A good family is just people. It's just the same. You're the same. See, I look around sometimes and I see people not doing this. I see people who, one of two things, it goes one or the other direction. Either they're like, in their families is the protected place, the place where they really shine, the place where they really help each other, and they feel like, this is my thing. I'm supposed to really help my family out and really be the right kind of person for my family. But then when I go outside into the world, like I'm in enemy territory or something, I should be a little bit mean or rough or gruff. I should be protective and not let anyone see the inside of me. And then I go back home to where my family is, and that's where we're real people and we show each other who we are. I don't understand that. And then the other way is true too. People who are out in the world like smiley and laughy and everybody, they help everybody out, and then they go home and they're mean. They just are mean. They just are, lots of yelling and lots of putting each other down. And I don't get that either. I don't understand where that comes from. We should be that kind of person. The scripture tells us who we should be as people. And those people are people who are in families and who are not in families. So, I left that breakfast and I thought, all right, where does that come from? What's underneath that? Where did I get the information that I think we should be a humble person, a serving person, a person who puts other people first? And I'm thinking through, like, what's underneath all of that? And I realized it comes from the theology of the Trinity. The theology of the Trinity. And in order to understand my theology of the Trinity, we have to talk first about professional bicycling. Exactly right. This is how the mind works. So, my family is odd in lots and lots of ways, and one of the ways is that we all love professional cycling. We love to watch it on TV, which almost no one else in this room does. This really happens in my life. I'm at work, and I get a phone call, and it's my son, and he says, "Dad, they just released the Tour de France schedule. You're never going to believe day 7. It's got 2 Cat 2s and 2 Cat 1s and an HC. The sprinters are going to die." Yes, they are, son. Yes, they are. I mean, you have no idea what we were talking about, but we were into it, right? So I'm going to show you a little video of the most beautiful. Cycling is a very, very complicated sport, and one day in a lot of cycling races, they do this unusual thing called a team time trial. Now, you can start rolling this video. And the team time trial is beautiful. It's gorgeous. As I was researching for this, I watched hours of team time trial just for you. But what I want you to watch is how the person who's in the front is in the front for a very short amount of time, and then they come off the front, and now they go rolling to the back. The guy in the front is putting in 30% more work than everyone behind him. 30%. And so he can't stay there very long because they are all out pinning their heart rates as high as they can. This is massive suffering that's going on the screen. It looks beautiful and gorgeous. These guys are in pain. So doesn't that sound fun? So the guy gets to the front, and he just goes until he can't go anymore, and then he has to roll off the front and go to the back. And he's, in a sense, resting, although they're not really resting, because they are flying down the road. So let's see that. He rolls off the front. He rolls off the front. He rolls off the front. This is my picture of the Trinity. They love to cycle. No, that's not what it is. This is my picture of the Trinity. They roll off the front. They roll off the front. They roll off the front. No one's ever looking to be that front man, right? It's the same guy, John Ortberg, who wrote that book, Everyone's Normal Till You Get to Know Him. He was going to write another article. He wrote an article and said, here was my intention. I was going to write an article that was called The Shyness of the Spirit, where I was going to say the Holy Spirit within the Trinity is the shy one. And he never talks about himself. He only points toward Jesus, and he says, this is Jesus, this is Jesus. You should know him, you should love him, you should understand him. And John Ortberg said, while I was researching for that article, I realized that I was wrong, that all 3 of them are the shy ones. And so instead, he came up with this term he called the shyness of the Trinity. He said, this is how the Trinity seems to work. None of them are talking about themselves. They're all pointing at each other. God is like, this is my son who I love. In the beginning of Genesis, God creates the world, right? But what really creates? The voice, the spirit of God, of Jesus, what we later learn in John. And it was spoken into being. That was the Son doing that work. And then Jesus is constantly saying, I only say what God says I should say. And the Spirit is saying, remember what Jesus said. But Jesus is like, yeah, well, what I said was what he said. And then in one place in the scriptures it says the Spirit led Jesus out into the desert, and it suggests as you read it, like Jesus wasn't exactly excited to go out in the desert, but he submits himself to the leading of the Spirit. So they're just constantly rolling off the front, rolling off the front. I've long had this idea, this kind of picture in my head, that when I get to heaven, I'm going to walk up to God, and then it's going to dawn on me, wait, the Father wasn't the front man. It was the Spirit, right? They're so humble and so rolling off the front that we can't even really figure out who's in charge. And then they say, exactly, because it's not like that. It's not how it works. So, from that, what does it mean to be a good kind of person? A good kind of person. Look at this chapter in Philippians. This section in Philippians. This is my favorite. If I was to pick a scripture, this is my favorite scripture, and so I've taught it to you a few times before. But it always seems to fit. So here we go again. No, do nothing out of vain ambition or conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but the interests of others. See how this sets up? We are in a section here where we're talking about this exact idea. You should be putting other people before you. You should be rolling off the front. You should be coming from a spirit of humility as we relate to each other. And then Paul transitions and he says, in fact, you should be doing that exactly like Jesus, who's part of the Trinity, did that. So Paul makes, I think, a very similar argument to the one I'm making, which is this is how God works. And then these are the most beautiful lines at the beginning. Our relationship with each other should have the same mindset as Jesus, who, being in the very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage, or the other translation that maybe you learned like me, something to be grasped. And then here's the important part. It doesn't say who, being God, or because he was God, in spite of being God, he released it. He doesn't say in spite of being God, he released it. He says because he is God. Because he is God, he released it. Do you get this? This is a huge difference. Not in spite of the fact that he was God, like he had some authority, he was in charge of everything, but in spite of that, he lowered himself. That's not what it says. It says, he was God, he had everything, he was in power, and because he was God, the very nature of God, who God is, what you would understand about being God is that you roll off the front. That's what you do. That's because you are God. Because he was in the very nature God, he didn't consider that something to be held on to. So he let go of it. And then he made himself man. He made himself nothing. He rolls off the front. He goes clear to the back of the line. This verse just like, if you track this verse, it just goes clear to the back of the line. To where we get in verse 8. And he becomes obedient. He becomes obedient. Who's he obedient to? The Trinity, right? He becomes obedient to death. And we're going to be celebrating that here in just a few minutes. We're going to be taking communion. And this communion is a remembrance of this amazing thing that God, because he's God, rolls off the front and says, I'm not supposed to be here about myself. I'm supposed to serve you. I'm supposed to serve you all the way to death. All the way to death. And then here's the amazing thing, this funny next verse. Therefore, God exalted him to the highest place. Whoop! Like, he's back on front, right? God rolls off the back. It's like he's on this bicycle. He's like, he rolled off the front. He did his job, and he's in the back. And he's like, whew, I did my job. Wait a second, I'm back at the front. And I can just imagine he just rolls back out. But, therefore, God exalts him, puts him back in the front. Then every knee is going to bow at his name. So, what did I learn? What does it mean to be a good person? What does it mean to be the right kind of person? Humility. Putting other people first. Servanthood. Serving each other. Submission to others' authority. God, Jesus is submitting to the authority of the Spirit as he gets led out in the desert. Submitting to the authority of God and the Spirit as he's led to the cross to die. That being in a position of authority actually means to submit. How weird is that? Submitting, continually rolling off the front. This is what it means to be a person of God, a person who is like God. I think Orchard Hill does a pretty good job of this idea, of teaching this. We teach about servanthood a lot. We teach that you should be as a person out into the world and serving. In fact, I had this funny dream. My partner and I have a game where we tell each other our dreams and then we fake interpret them. This one I can interpret on my own. It was pretty hilarious. So for a while, as the end of fantasy football leagues start approaching, I started having dreams about the Super Bowl. I was a little high on myself because I was winning in my fantasy football league. And eventually, by the way, here's the end of the story. I did win the Super Bowl of fantasy football. Thank you very much. You are in the presence of a hero. It was a big deal. So as the date's approaching, as the finals are approaching, I start having dreams of the Super Bowl, of the real Super Bowl. And they all had this in common. I see the Super Bowl, and I should go to the Super Bowl. And I go to the Super Bowl, and then when I get there, it's a real letdown. It's a real small deal. Like it's being held in, you know that University of Iowa practice dome thing that they have down there? It's being held in that kind of a thing. And I'm like, what's going on? This is supposed to be the Super Bowl. Here's where you don't have to be Freud to interpret. Kurt, you were making a little bit too big a deal out of this fantasy football deal, right? Okay. So, but I did win. I know, right? So in one of these dreams about the Super Bowl, where it was a big letdown, I'm at this letdown Super Bowl, and it starts raining, and the power goes out, and see, because it's a real letdown, and then they decide, well, we were going to have this ceremony after the game, but we'll have it in halftime, and so they start getting ready for this ceremony where they were going to award some people some prizes or something, and they're setting up chairs. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. They're setting up chairs, and I'll just wait for the second half. Well, then I look out and I realize Dave Bartlett is one of the people setting up the chairs. Yeah, of course Dave Bartlett's setting up chairs. That's who he is. And then I remember the ceremony that they're going to have is to give Dave Bartlett like the Human of the Year award. And I'm like, hey, okay, this does make sense. Dave Bartlett is setting up chairs for his own Human of the Year award. That's exactly right. It's exactly right in two ways. It's exactly how Dave would be, right? You all know he will set up chairs for his Human of the Year award when it happens. And it's exactly right that that's how we should be. And then I felt kind of dumb being out on the sidelines. Like, why am I not helping Dave? Because I'm eating this hot dog, that's why. Right? And then I won the Super Bowl, by the way, just in case you didn't know that. So I think Orchard Hill has done a pretty good job of this. I think we have taught this area of learning to be humble people. So I just want to take that you know, right? And I just want to quickly turn the corner with it and say, all right, so what does it mean to be a good father, a good husband, a good wife, a good sibling, a good sister, a good brother? What does it mean to be a good one of those? And you know my answer, right? The same slide should go right back up. It means being a humble person. It means putting other people first, putting other people in front of me, their needs, their wishes, their desires. This is a little self-serving, but I'm going to tell you, my dad would make fun of my wife and I, and he would say, you guys are one of those couples that can't go out to eat because you can never decide where to go because nobody will make a choice. You're all like, wherever you want to go, wherever you want to go, wherever you... That's funny, but true. This is what it means, I think, to be in a relationship. I want to put you first. It means rolling off the front and putting yourself into a submissive place. I mean, it's saying, I'm submitting to you in all ways, as a sister, as a brother, as a husband, as a wife. Submit to one another. Continually rolling off the front and putting other people first. That's what I think it means to be in a good family. So in this same teaching assignment that came from the teaching team was this note. And I wrote it verbatim because it made me smile so much. Each of our teachers will list 4 to 5 specific, helpful, practical strategies for use in that reality. You don't know me if you think I can list 4 or 5 specific, helpful, and practical strategies. I'm really horrible at that. I'm a theoretical person. I hate, this is insightful. When I'm teaching and I see you guys take notes, I'm always like, what are you writing? Don't do that. That scares me. It really does. I'm like, what did I say? So I'm bad at that. But because the assignment says I was going to do that, I'm going to do that. You might find them less practical than you would find some of our other teachers, but here's the way Kurt Vander Wiel does, practical and helpful and specific. Okay, number 1. Sometimes, and this gets back a little bit to my earlier story, sometimes I meet people who are very intense and sacrificial and protective of their families, but they are not very sacrificial within that family environment. Right? Do you see what I'm saying? They would protect their families. I talk with a lot of young guys, and I feel this kind of thing from them sometimes. I would die for my family. I would do anything for my family. If there was a problem, if there was a crisis, I would step up. But I wouldn't day to day change my life for my family. I wouldn't day to day sacrifice what I thought my career is supposed to be or my path was supposed to be. I wouldn't actually change where I think we should live. I wouldn't sacrifice those big things about who it means to be me. Athletics. I wouldn't sacrifice that. We had a neighbor one time whose wife said to us, my husband, you can't count on him for much, but you can count on him to protect the family. Okay, so my wife and I go home and we're like, I would way rather be married to the opposite of that sentence. I'd way rather be married to a person who I could count on all the time, who like when the dishes need to be done, when the vacuuming needs to be done, when someone needs to wake up to take care of the baby, that you could count on that person all the time. But if a lion came in my neighborhood and was going to eat us all, he would scream. I mean, I would way rather die at the hands of a criminal, but all the rest of my days having been served mutually with somebody. I would way rather that, because I feel fairly safe on the one thing. I'm not going to die from a lion tomorrow. I'm pretty sure about that. But I am going to live tomorrow, and I am going to have needs tomorrow, and I am going to wish that I was in a relationship where that was mutually submissive, right? So I often will challenge these guys. You're willing to die for your family, but you're not willing to not have a life. How does that make any sense? Just pretend you died right now then, right? And live the rest of your life dead. Do that big sacrifice now. Some advice from Kurt. There should be some sort of song that goes with that. Okay, number 2. Do you think that you do everything better than everyone else? See, I do. I really do. This is serious. And this is a struggle for me. When you're raising kids, let's admit it, you do everything better than them, right? You play basketball better than them, and tennis better than them, and you wash the dishes better than them, and vacuum better than them. You do everything better than them. But if you never let them do it, then what's going to happen? You're going to always be better than them washing the dishes and vacuuming, and they're going to be watching TV. And you're going to be like, what? Which is exactly, I know this because this is where I am. They're not here today. But this is all areas of your life. All right, number 3. Do you think someone else exists to make you happy? Just think about this for a second. Is there any part of your life where you think someone else exists to make you happy? Well, here's my follow-up question. So who do you exist to make happy? Who is on the other side of that for you? That they're thinking, that person really seems like they exist to make me happy. And hopefully there's some of it that goes both ways. And hopefully none of you ever get into this trap where you think someone else exists that way. We were at work, and at work, I really, really, really don't want there to be any of this kind of hierarchy thing. At work, one time we assigned the interns were going to wash the dishes. And this is a wrong decision. And you know what happened? Immediately, no one was even taking their dishes to the kitchen. Dishes were just everywhere, all over the place. It's because we are just really good at just letting someone else do that, letting someone else rule our lives. This just happens so fast with us. If someone else starts doing something for you, pretty soon you're just like, okay, do that, and you exist to do that, and you just remove yourself from that function. I'm saying, stay in it. Stay with it. Even if someone is doing something to serve you on a regular basis, stay with them. Stay thankful. Stay joyous. Okay. Next one. Do you feel like you're in some sort of position of authority somewhere? And I think all of us are in some position of authority somewhere, right? Even I see big brothers, big sisters, little sisters. There's this feeling of authority there. Me at work, there's a feeling of authority there. There's some place where you have this feeling. And I'm saying, how can you take that feeling and look back at Philippians and say, who being in the very nature God, the ultimate position of authority, and because he had that authority, he rolled off the front with it. So I'm just asking you to ask yourself, with my position of authority, how can I roll off the front with it? What's the best way for me to roll off the front and say, I'm going to use this authority to make other people in front of me? And the last one is, do you feel like everyone is better than you at something? Do you think everyone has it better than you? Do you sit in your family situation or in your life situation and think, wow, if I only was like them? I had this nonstop travel over the last couple days, and there was a lot of people in the airports this week because every flight was canceled everywhere. It was a mess this whole week, and there was a lot of people grumbling and complaining. And I, inside, was feeling that way too. In fact, at one point, they said I was going to get home this afternoon, and so you guys would have just had a puppet up here. I don't know what would have happened, but and I was feeling bad, and then I was remembering, this is what I'm teaching. There are so many times in our lives where we feel like people have it better than us. What we teach our kids is look down the ladder, not up. Look at what you do have, not at what you don't have. Focus on how grateful you are, not on what you wish you could be getting. Yeah, there's things that need to change and things that are going to be better, things that someone else has better than you. Yes, there are. Absolutely true. But when you focus on those things, when you spend your life pining for those things, it just makes you sicker and sicker. If you would spend an equal or more time looking at what you already have, looking how much you have. And so I really did. I literally did this. I said to myself, what you teach your kids, do too. Look down the ladder, not up. Look, I'm traveling. I was in Vegas this week at CES. Not very many people have that opportunity. Look, I was able to use money to go get a cab and then get a hotel and stay overnight in the wrong town that I didn't want to be in, but I still was able to do that, right? There was all kinds of things that I made for a list for myself that day. And the next morning I woke up feeling a little bit better. So, my advice in one sentence is, be the same person everywhere. It's going to go better. It's going to be easier. It's going to take a lot less energy. You don't have to remember which person you're supposed to be where. Just be that one person. And we're going to pray, and we're going to have communion. And really, as we approach communion, this is what I want you to be thinking. Here is Jesus, God, who, because he was God, rolled off the front. Because he was God, he found himself in the form of a person. And then when he was in that form, he served by putting on a towel and washing people's feet. And then he kept serving. He served his God, he served the Spirit, all the way till when he died on the cross. And why did he do that? Because he was serving you. Because he took his position of authority and served you with it to the point where he died. I also think, by the way, as I read his life, he lived exactly the thing I was saying before. Why don't you pretend you die now and just not have a life? Jesus exactly did that. He lived it out. He lived his entire span on earth serving other people and pretending like it wasn't about him. Even though all of history was about him. He was like, this isn't about me. Yes, it is. No, it's not. And he served people, and he served people, and he served people. And now we're going to be taking communion, and as you hold this bread and this wine, I want you to be thinking about servanthood, humility, putting other people first, and say, yeah, there's a bit of a gap between me and this. And then I want you to challenge yourself as you go home. Close that gap a little bit. I'm going to pray. Heavenly Father, member of the Trinity, who models for us the constant rolling and pointing at each other, the constant humbling, serving, and then, miracle of miracles, you include us in that. He's saying, you know what? We're not just serving each other, the three of us. We intend to put all of you in. We intend to roll off the front and behind you, the people of earth. So God sent his Son, and his Son served us and taught us and died for us. And then sent the Spirit who reminds us. I pray that now as we start this communion, that we will be humbled by it and that we'll be challenged to be more like that. Amen.